So where you go, there's always going to be sort of a liberal-leaning attitude. But I did find it generally a lot more open and accepting of different races or different lifestyles and everything of the sort. One of the artists was she's a South African, she's a white artist, many generations from South Africa. And she brought up the concept of post-colonialism and how in South Africa that's actually a really bad idea, because in there it's sort of treated, people who are post-colonial treated as like, oh, well, it's all over, everything's fine. That's in the past, we're all done with that. And she's like, there's a big friction against that, because obviously it's not all over and it's not all taken care of. And so that was an interesting shift for me, because I always thought of it was like post-colonialism seems to be in America brought up as like this really hard critique of the colonial mentality and that, and apartheid and all that. And she's like, well, saying no, that approach is actually used to say that that's all been sorted out and dismantled. So I guess that's not really a Swiss perception, but that is one of the discussions we had.
Well, I mean, I guess it's interesting because Switzerland is in Europe considered a very conservative country.
Yeah.
But yet, for an American going there, it's kind of like surprising. I mean, I guess I'm perhaps not so much. I guess in connection to some of the issues that you raised about materiality, immateriality, I tend to perhaps stereotypically in my mind know where America fits and where Europe fits. Do you find that those stereotypes were that they had? That did you feel yourself a stranger in a different sort of like philosophical, psychological arena, or were you very much at home?
It was actually really weird, especially coming from UFC. It was sort of like this really intense Hegelian thing, and so I felt as sort of alienated as I do at UFC, because I'm not that well versed in philosophy, but the language is all there. Everyone was talking about having an idea and like, can you unpack that idea, or let's talk about our practice as an artist. So it was interesting that international people get together and there's still these sort of art terms that are used. I guess I would say one thing, and it's kind of like a minor story, but someone was saying one of the Summer Academy administrators or directors was saying how she used to be an administrator at a nursing home and talking about the waste that was going on there. And it really interested me because everyone, Americans are so wasteful, but it's like they have the exact same rules there, and about, well, it's past its date, throw it out, or, we served this person dinner and they didn't touch their pudding cup, but we have to throw the pudding cup out. And so she was talking about this waste that she sees, or like just people. The conversation was about like people throwing away stuff in the refrigerator that's perfectly good, but it's past the date. And I thought that was like a really interesting moment that I was like, you do it too, But yeah, is that...
Yeah.
Anybody?
This is awkward.
No, but I was really disappointed that no one was excited about Obama anymore, and I was really bummed because like the last time I was in Europe, Bush was the president, so I was like really nervous and sort of ashamed, and I'd get in a lot of conversations about, people think this and that. Or I was in England, they're like, you've never been attacked, you had the September 11th, that's not a big deal, we were in World War II and we were like bombed repeatedly, and so I was like, I'm gonna come to Europe, and it's like, and I'm living down the street from Obama in Hyde Park, and this would be awesome. I'd be like proud, and people are gonna want to hear my stories that, about the motorcade and shit. And we were at this doner kebab place one night, and the guy was asking us like where we're from, and my friend was from Colombia, and so he was talking to her, and he's like, where are you from? And I was like, Chicago, and he goes, oh, Michael Jordan. Oh. And I was like, yeah, Obama too, and he's like, Michael Jordan. Like he was totally like. That like excitement happened like the 3 months after he was elected, or before when he was speaking in Berlin, and it was like, but it wasn't as outwardly like, oh, you're stupid, as I kind of felt when it's like, if your president's like respected as being international and smart, then they sort of give you the benefit of the doubt, and if they're against your president, then they assume you're stupid too.
So what's next?
For me, So part of the thing was like they usually produce a small catalog and an exhibition, and because there wasn't going to be an exhibition, there wasn't an interest in a publication, but us artists got together and like, we'd really like to do something with this. And so we sort of lobbied and presented our case, and so that's the project we're working on now that I'm going to be one of the editors of. And also why I wanted to do this talk was to sort of expand that experience outside of it, or bring up some of the themes I was talking about, because we don't want it to just be like, oh, remember that time we had? And then have that moment of like, well, I couldn't explain it anyway, to say, well, we had really interesting conversations, so now we're going to go back to where we live and work and sort of talk to people about those things, and then hopefully expand that into like a publication with essays or different contributions. So hopefully you guys feel slightly expanded. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could talk more about the half art.
Yeah.
And the fabrication to the boxes and stuff. Like, how do the people that are there all the time, I mean, is there like an ongoing conversation about half art?
I got the impression that they're like it's so part of their work and what they do that it's just around, but then like we come in and we're like, oh, this is this great Stingel piece, and they're like, well, he let us keep it because it wasn't that good, but we want to show it. And the point that I guess it's sort of not really answering that, but related to it, was they're saying that they never want to they don't like hiring artists to work there, because not only do they feel sort of put upon, oh, I'm building this thing for Urs Fischer, but they don't do it quote unquote right. They do it the way they would do it. So they hire people that are like really interested in making things, but don't view themselves as artists. So I guess that's sort of another way that it ties into this sort of an art object, that it's like, well, that was the one I was practicing on, or that one I didn't get the paint job right. Because it's someone that would be like, more into like craftsmanship or model building or something, because you're saying when we try to get an artist, they'll either be really, feel put upon, or they'll paint it their way, and they're like, well, I wanted you to make it look like the Koons box, not what, So there's sort of that tension too, that this kind of murky line between craftsmanship and artisan. But that was sort of a conversation that we sort of talked about as later on, and I just got the feeling that he's like, this is my life and my work, and here's this thing, and we're like, holy cow, that's awesome. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we didn't do it right, so it's just sitting there.
We should wrap up, everybody. Thanks, Erik.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.